I went to college at the Rhode Island School of Design with one of my co-founders, Joe Gebbia. And on the day of graduation, Joe said, "Brian, one day we should start a company together." And a couple years later, he calls me up, and I was working in Los Angeles, California, and he says, "Brian, let's start a company." I was working as a designer in Santa Monica. I impulsively quit my job. In the middle of the night, one night, I drove up to San Francisco with $1,000 in the bank account, and I rolled up everything in the back of my old Honda Civic. I get to our apartment, and Joe tells me the rent's $1,150. And I realize, I probably should have asked about that before I came up to San Francisco. So we had this problem, and the problem was we needed to make rent, and we were two designers that wanted to meet people. And it turns out that weekend, an international conference was coming to San Francisco, a design conference. All the hotels were sold out. We had the idea, why not create a bed and breakfast for designers that need housing? We can make money and meet people. We didn't have any furniture, but Joe said he had a couple air beds. He inflated the air beds, and it wasn't a bed and breakfast. We called it the Air Bed and Breakfast. And our name originally came from Air Bed and Breakfast, which was not a startup. It was a way for us to make rent 3 years ago. We thought the idea was absurd ourselves. I think a lot of my friends did too. We thought it was just a way to make rent, and then we decided we'd keep doing it as a way to keep making rent until we came up with the idea. We didn't think this was the idea. We didn't know what we wanted to do. We actually at one point thought we were going to create a roommate site. We said, no one would ever do something like Air Bed and Breakfast, but maybe if we added profiles to roommates, we would do something like that. And we never really got excited about that idea. And eventually people kept mentioning Air Bed and Breakfast. And what seemed crazy, we just kind of got comfortable with. And we decided, you know what, let's just create Air Bed and Breakfast. It took about a year honestly, it took like a year to get probably 100 users. And then and now we'll get those in like an hour or whatever it is. So it's pretty crazy. No one wanted to be the first person to do this. It's one of those concepts that once it gets going, everyone wants to do it, but no one wants to be the first person to try it. So what happened was we did this. We provided housing for the San Francisco Design Conference. 5 months later, South by Southwest is coming up. 2008, South by Southwest. We decided, let's create a website where we can provide housing for conferences all over the United States. So we created a tiny little website in 3 weeks. It wasn't super sophisticated. And we launched it. And I think we had 3 people use the site. And so, it wasn't really a big idea. We allowed some time to pass. And in the summer of 2008, that's when we finally came up with the site you see today. We decided people aren't using this site for conferences. Let's build a site where you can literally book a room anywhere around the world. And the problem was, how do we get people to start using it? And so we figured we had to pick an event or something where there was a lack of housing. We could promote it. And it turned out that the Democratic National Convention was coming up. And it was a great press opportunity because in the summer of 2008, all anyone was talking about was Obama. And the Democratic National Convention was coming up in Denver, Colorado. And they moved him, if you remember, to a huge football stadium. They had 27,000 hotel rooms that were sold out. And we started writing. We basically said, that is it. That's how we're going to find all the press. So we literally typed in, I think, DNC housing crisis in Google News. We found all the email addresses, all the reporters writing about this DNC housing crisis. And we just emailed all of them. I mean, we emailed probably 1,000 people. We just stayed day and night just emailing people until people wrote us back. And eventually a couple bloggers started writing about us. And then the local news picked it up, and then the local newspapers did. Denver, I think the Rocky Mountain News and Denver Post picked it up. And then pretty soon, national press picked it up because they were following their own keywords, and they noticed all these people were talking about this thing called Air Bed and Breakfast. And one day CNN calls us, and they want to do a story. And as soon as CNN does a story, then New York Times, and that basically got us international visibility. And then people started listing their rooms all over the country. So I think by far the hardest thing is getting those first 100, then 1,000, then 10,000 people. We spent a year trying to just get anybody to use it. And then we spent the last 2 years since then getting to the point where we are today, where we have done over 900,000 nights booked through our website. I think at some point the flywheel gets going. You know what PG said about when he met us? He said our idea is terrible. He said our idea, he thought our idea was terrible, but he let us in anyway. So I'll tell you how we got into Y Combinator. this is kind of a separate side story, but we ended up making this collectible cereal, and I don't know if I should go into this story, but we ended up making this collectible cereal we provide housing for the Democratic and Republican National Convention, and as a promotional item, we made Obama and McCain themed cereals. We called the Obama themed cereal Obama O's, their little Cheerios, the Breakfast of Change, and Captain McCain's. And the thing we never told anyone until recently is that that's actually how we funded our company. We funded our company by creating cereal, because basically we created this marketplace that no one would use because we couldn't solve the chicken and egg problem. But we came up with this weird cereal for fun one night. Everyone wanted to buy the cereal, and we said, well, we'll keep selling the cereal because we need to make money. And the cereal was our seed money. That is the original thing that funded our company. And Paul Graham heard that, and we were applying in November of 2008. Now, if you remember November 2008, the trait everyone's looking for in founders in November 2008 are people that are like cockroaches. They're not going to die no matter what, because it's not clear anyone's going to raise money, not like today. And so Paul Graham's like, man, you guys are hardcore. You will not die. And he thought we had a lot of imagination. So that's why he picked us. And he figured this idea is terrible, but they'll probably do something else. But they're not going to die. Now when I talk to people at Airbnb, they have a familiarity with it, and they're comfortable with the concept. We used to have to talk to 100 people typically. I mean, I don't know the number, but let's say we had to talk to 100 people to find somebody that was interested in the very early days. So you had to overcome rejection a lot. We don't face that level of rejection. I remember we used to have not even, now if you need software, you need things, you can do it. Now we have a team of people. Being an entrepreneur when you're not successful is an incredibly solitary thing. And that's why it's so important for us to have had great co-founders. Whatever happens in the incubation, the creation period, it's kind of like your childhood. It's the equivalent of your childhood for your company. Whatever happens in the creation of your company will impact everything else you do forever. We had to be incredibly disciplined. We had to hustle. And the most important thing is we had to focus. When you don't have any money, you can't pursue 5 strategies. You can pursue one strategy. And we had to fundamentally pick the thing. And I think now it's just people are able to raise a lot of money, build big teams, and develop things that maybe people don't really want. We could only make a bet when we had enough data to know people really wanted this. I think conventional wisdom is overrated. And I think people confuse logic with conventional wisdom. Do you know what I mean? In other words, if you were being logical, you would do something for yourself, or you experiment on yourself, and you'd say, oh, that worked on me. The logical thing is, if am I unique? If I'm not unique, it'll work on other people. That was kind of what we did at Airbnb. We thought conventional wisdom says this is crazy, so people aren't going to want it. But we don't have to build things. We only need to make a rent for us. We don't need to make rent for other people. So we built the site for ourselves. We had a great experience, and then a few other people started doing it. So, it's kind of like this idea of conventional wisdom. And I think that Airbnb and Uber both totally fly in the face of conventional wisdom and what we're comfortable with. I would caution people from going into things that are hot. I would caution people who are recognizing tech trends and saying, let's go into group buying, let's go into location-based, mobile, whatever. And the reason I would caution people against that is this is a long path. This is a 5-year, a 10-year, and if you're successful, it's 10, 20, 30, 40, who knows how long it is. But if you think of it in that sense, and you realize how many different trends there are, you'll start to realize that you should focus on something that you're truly passionate about and not something that's hot. And I think focusing on solving your own problem, scratching your own itch, and building a team with people that you've built a personal relationship with is the way to do it.